Hello guys, welcome back. In our last video we were able to create the functionalities to add food recipes and also to list out our recipes. Alright, so in this very video guys, we are going to be implementing the Swagger documentation so that we'll be able to see what we are actually building in backend. Alright, and also we'll be implementing the search functionalities, as search and filter functionalities, so users can be able to search for recipes made by a particular category or a particular origin or by chef. So we'll see how we perform those features. Alright, so for us to actually implement our documentation, we'll be using the package called dref-yags. So this is the package we're using for documentation. This package is a very simple package to implement. It actually gives us two ways of documenting our APIs. We can use the Swagger UI or you can use the REST UI. Alright, so you can, if you go through the package, you can see how the different things you can actually do with this package to implement documentation. So I'm going to be showing you how to do that now, and then we'll be using the Swagger UI because it looks a bit cooler. Alright, so this is actually the Swagger UI. We'll be using this for that. Alright, so for us to do it now, we can see first we have to install it. So we grab this and go back to our terminal to install it. Alright, so we install. So this will take a couple of seconds to install. So before that, let's add it to our install app, because that's the next stage, is to add it to our install app. So if we get back to the documentation, so next in the project URL, they gave us a very simple example of how to actually set this up. So we can see this example they gave us. So we're going to just grab this example here and bring it into our project URL, url.py file, which is the project based url.py file. So let's just paste them here. Alright, so we'll quickly arrange and set them up. Alright, these are for the import, so we can just push them up a little bit. So we see we are importing from REST framework, we are importing permissions, and from the dref-yags.views we are importing this function called get schema view, and also from here we are importing an open API, and you can see what they did here. Let's take this out. Schema view, which equals the get schema view function or method, and in this method we have the title, so we can quickly specify our title here. In this case we'll call it food recipe. Default version 1 is okay, so we can provide a description for our API. Alright, so terms of service here we can just provide maybe some kind of dummy URL. Right. So for the email we just provide a dummy email. Then for the license, let's just change this to test license. Alright, that's for the get schema view function, which is the openapi.info. So we provide the infos, the public, the permission class. Here setting is allow any. We'll change that later on. So let's first set up this URL first. So we just grab these three endpoints. So we're going to change the URLs to parts. So actually we don't really need this schema JSON URL, so we can just take out the .json URL and leave the Swagger and also the readers. Alright, so we can just change the path for the Swagger to just be /. We'll go to nothing, we just get our documentation, Swagger documentation. Alright, that's for the path. Then I think we can take this out. So alright, if we run our server, this URL. Alright, you can see our Swagger documentation. This is Swagger UI. You can see we have our food recipe API, which is the title we gave, and you can see different endpoints that are in our app. Alright, So you can see the endpoints for the authentication apps, you can see the endpoints for the version 1 app that we created, and these documentations allow us to actually test. So if we want to get chef list, you can see it's a get request, no parameter requested. Then if we execute, you see our response, it's giving us authentication credentials when provided, which is also the right response because we are not authenticated. Alright, so we'll set up the authentication right now, because right now it's still using session authentication, so we need to set up authentication in our settings file. So we can go below, and here we're going to provide the Swagger settings configuration. So you can check the documentation. If you go to settings, you can see where you specify the Swagger settings. So you're going to specify this is what we want here. We can just grab the right. So in this case, our security mechanism is going to be token, and the type is going to call it API key, and we'll provide a name parameter, authorize. So does that, so we can check if our server is still up. Okay, go back and try and log in this time. So if we refresh, I will go to where we have our login, and here you can see we can obtain our auth token with this endpoint. You can see it gives us a description. Use this endpoint to obtain your user authentication token. Alright, so we need to provide our password. So let's log in with the admin. So if we execute, you can see we are getting our auth token back. So you can see we can actually test our API with the Swagger UI documentation. So we go to authorization. In here you can see we need to provide the authorization value. So here we just write token and we'll paste our token. So now we can make requests. So let's try and get our chef list. We try that. We execute. So let's see what we have in our response. You can see our response, we are getting users as our chef. And let's try one more time category. So let's get all the food categories. Let's try that. You can see we are having different food categories for soup, categories for snacks, and all that. So let's try and create a food. Let's make a post request to add a snack. So I'm going to use in here. You can see the required feed that is asking for. So if we hit try that, it gives us the JSON value. So we're just going to write in. Alright, so I've been providing this various test information, test data, so we can execute and see. So once we execute, let's check our response. You can see our response, a food was created, test snacks, category 2, and all that. So you can see we can actually we can create new food recipe. Let's see if we can get recipe list. Here we have the food, and if we try that, we execute, we can see we are getting the food list. Alright, so this documentation, it's very handy. We can use it to test, we can see descriptions, require parameters, and all that. So it's a great tool to work with when you're working with a front-end engineer. With this simple documentation, they will know how to use your API. Alright, so that's for this. So next we're going to be creating filters, abilities for users to search by a particular category or by particular origin or chef name. So that's the functionalities that we're going to create. So we're going to create a very simple extra endpoint. We can actually add that to the food list endpoint, but I just want to create a separate endpoint for filter. Alright, to actually implement filtering and search in Django REST framework, There are also a couple of ways we can handle this. If you go to the Django RESTful Web documentation, you see there are a lot of ways. There are even third-party packages that we can use. Depends on our use case. For advanced search and filtering, there are other packages like the Django filters. But we'll be using a very default search filter that comes with this is built into the Django REST framework. Alright, so we don't need to install any packages. We'll be using a search filter. It's a search filter class, supports simple single query parameter based searching, and it's based on the Django REST the Django admin search functionalities when you use. So this is the kind of this is search that we'll be using. Apart from this, you can also use the Django filter package. Alright, so I will advise you to go through this documentation and read about it. But aside that, I'm going to show you how we can use the search feed and the ordering feed. These two ordering feed class support simple query parameters, control ordering of results. Right, so let's head back to our code and create our class. We're going to use the list API generic endpoint. So just like every other generic endpoint, so we're going to specify our query set, specify our query set, the permission class. Right, so next we need to specify our filter backends. This is going to be a tuple. Alright, so this is where we're going to provide the search filter class and the ordering filter class. So we need to actually import these classes. So we're going to say we want to import the search. Alright. So once we specify the filter backend that we want to use, we can as well specify the search feeds. That's the feeds we want to use to search from our model. So we're going to see it's going to be a list. Alright, so we can search. We want to search by the name of the full meter and also the category name, because it's a foreign key. So we're going to access by using double underscore followed by the name. So we can also want to search by the origin of the food, because the food model is a Chinese food, an African food, and Asia food, things like that. Alright, so you can as well add other feeds that you want to search by. And another thing is that for the filter feeds, there are some flags that we can add at the beginning of the feed to actually restrict how the search will be performed. So you can see the different flags. We have the start with search flag. So when you put this character at the beginning of your search feed, it will perform the search by starting any character that matches the start of your search. And we have the equal sign, which means exact match, and the @ and also the $sign. So but for our case, we are going to leave it like that because we don't want the search parameter to be exact. So in case anybody types in the name, even if they type it incorrectly but close, we can still get what the person is actually saying. So we're going to set up our URL for this view. To test it out now, I'm going to use Postman to test it, and I'm also going to use our Swagger UI docs to also test it. Alright, so if you go to our Swagger UI docs now, let's try it out from here first. So we can just refresh. So first we need to actually get our auth token. So I'll just rush and log in to get our token. So we have our auth token I can grab. So if we scroll down to the endpoint, you can see the endpoint where it says get food, and here it says we should provide the search term, so what do we want to search for, and also so if we try that now, we can provide the search. Let's say we want to search for snacks, which is by a category called snacks. So if we execute, we we'll see that we have just one item returned because we only have one snacks item. Alright, that's good. So if we want to check for, I think we created something called black soup, so we can call search for the black soup. So if we execute again and let's check what we had back. Okay, we had black soup, and you can see the name is black soup 1. So if we had used the exact sign, we would have been able to get it correctly. So you're able to get just one item that has the name black soup. Alright, so our search is actually working fine. So if we also test it with Postman, if we go to Postman and then let's visit the endpoint, snacks also. Alright, like I said, you see the search parameter here is actually using search because we are performing the search. But if you want to customize maybe the search parameter to be maybe your own custom name or something, you see where it says filtering against a query parameter. This is if you want to set your own query parameter yourself. You have to override the get query set where you have to specify the name for your search parameter. Alright, you can see the example they give here by specifying self.query request.query underscore parameter.get. So we specify our own parameter here. So this is how you do it if you want to specify your own custom parameter. But search is okay for us, so we'll be using search. Alright, before the search, alright, so let's provide our auth token. So if we perform our search, and you can see we are getting our snacks, which is just one item, that is snacks. Alright, so you can see we can perform our search. Alright guys, so in this video we were able to set up our Swagger documentation and we're able to perform search feature functionalities in our API. Alright guys, I'm going to end this video here, so don't forget to subscribe and also give this a thumbs up. In our next video, which hopefully is going to be the last video in this series, we're going to handle costs and also ability for us to update a particular food recipe and also delete any food recipe that I want to delete. See you guys in the next video.